guys, it is April from Getting Hookah With It. Today we're talking about the best horror books that I read in 2019. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive in, I need to say that I have not finished at this point The Woman in Black by Susan Hill because I'm reading it for Christmas Cozy Reading Night. And I just haven't finished it. So that might have made the list. I don't know. But I do have 3 books that I want to share with you here. And they are all wonderful, wonderful horror books. So I should mention also, this is going from least favorite to most favorite. So my least favorite horror book that I read in 2019, which is still a favorite, is My Best Friend's Exorcism. This book is so reminiscent of the late 80s. I grew up in the 80s. I'm born in 81, so I was right in the thick of it when this story takes place. And it just, if you like Stranger Things, like this will give you the same kinds of vibes. So in this book we follow 2 best friends. They just have been joined at the hip for a very long time and have this very sweet, great relationship. They remain best friends throughout their childhood and into their teenage years. And in their teenage years, they go to this cabin overnight for a party, and one of the best friends goes missing. Like, she wanders into the woods and she doesn't come back until the morning. And they have spent the night searching the woods. They're searching for her, absolutely worried, sick about her. She comes out of the woods and she's fine, but she's not fine. You can tell that there's something wrong with her, but she says she's fine. And over the course of this book, you see her progressively get worse and worse and worse. And her best friend thinks, I think she became possessed while she was in the woods that night. And it's about their weird story together. And I do have to say, this has body horror in it. It's very gross. And there was a couple of scenes in here where I felt like throwing up. I was also in the first trimester when I read this, because I read this in January of 2019. And I remember being like, why am I reading this when I really wanted to throw up? So I will warn you, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun and super reminiscent if you grew up in the 80s, early 90s like I did. Next is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I did not expect a Stephen King to ever land on a favorites video. I really didn't. I read It by Stephen King. I didn't really love that, but Pet Sematary, it is so layered. So this book, I should say, is about a family who moved to this small town. The dad gets a chance to be a doctor in the small town, so they move there, and they move on this road that's very busy. Lots of transport trucks go up and down, and unfortunately, lots of pets die on this road. Their neighbor lets the father know that many people have actually buried their pet in a certain area, and their pet has come back to life. Not quite the same, at all the same, but they've come back. And what I loved about this book is it was actually really deep. It was, yes, a horror book, but it was very much about grief and what you would do for your loved ones. And I could have cried reading this book. It was so devastating, this book. It was truly a devastating kind of read. And I think Stephen King has still said that, like, this is his darkest book that he's ever written. And the whole time he was writing it, he was like, is this going too far? And I think it was perfect. I really think he did a really good job. There are some sex scenes in here that I found kind of comical and kind of ridiculous. But I listened to it on audiobook, and Michael C. Hall narrated it. And I think he lent to this. Like he made this book even better. I will say that. If you are going to read Pet Sematary and you haven't yet, try it on audio. It was fantastic. And then my number one horror book that a lot of you are going to go, that's not horror. And I would say, yep, it is to me, is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So I know a lot of you right now are going, that's not horror, girl. But this is about a dystopian world in which women have absolutely no rights. Infertility is like skyrocketing, and the women who have had children before and who are deemed fertile are forced to become handmaids. They're forced into having sex with these very wealthy men in order to give birth to children. And I think that's horrifying. This is a very strangely religious world now that people are living in the States in particular. And everyone is watching. So you can never trust anyone, even your fellow handmaids. You have to be careful who you talk to and you confide in. They no longer have names. To me, this is a horror book. It is a slow burn horror book. It is not jumpy outy. It is not super twisty turny. It's very slow burning, but it is so deeply unsettling for so many reasons. It's so similar in some ways to what could happen. Like it feels like this could happen. And maybe that is what is most horrifying about it. But yeah, I think it's just enormously unsettling, and I loved this. This was a reread for me this year. I had so much luck rereading this year, and I'm so glad that I reread it. I still have to read The Testaments, but I will do it. If you haven't read The Handmaid's Tale yet, if you are a feminist, if you are a little upset right now with what's going on in the world, yeah, I think you might enjoy The Handmaid's Tale. So yeah, that's my number one horror pick, which I know a lot of you are going to go, what? It's not. But it is to me. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what the best horror book that you read in 2019 was. I would love to know. I didn't read a ton of horror this year, and I love horror. I don't know why I didn't. So let me know in the comments below what your favorite is, and maybe it will land on my TBR at some point in 2020. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.